Sup nerds, it's Lindsay here again. So I finally managed to piece together enough overpriced crap to do another anti-haul, which I'm so excited about. I really like doing my last one. I've basically been wanting to do another one ever since I finished my last one. I'll link that one down below if you missed it, but you don't necessarily need to watch it before you watch this one. It's not like there's continuity errors or anything. Anyway, I actually have a lot of shit to get through, so let's just dive right in. Face first, feet last, ass somewhere in the middle, whatever, here we go. So once again, I have my notes on my laptop right here, and then I have the pictures here on my iPad that I'm going to show you. I'm filming on my phone. I know it's some pretty high-tech shit. Try not to lose your mind. So the first thing I have are these TooFaced jelly highlighters. Didn't these things already have their moment? Am I wrong about that? Really, like, jelly products in general, they had their brief moment where people were like, whoa, what the hell is this? And then everyone collectively got over it about 10 seconds later. Honestly, I would like to meet the person who is actually going to go out and purchase these because, first of all, you must have been living in a cave for all of 2018 if you think that this is something that's, like, new and exciting, and also you must have never seen makeup before in your life if you think a jelly highlighter is a good idea in the first place. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Moving on. So next thing I have are the Kylie face powders. So this is actually kind of redundant because a few weeks back, actually a while back, I did a video, like kind of a preemptive anti-haul where I just talked about brands where I basically just listed brands that I was already anti-hauling whatever they come out with next. Like I basically just said, like, for these brands, I don't even care what they come out with next. I already don't want it. I'll link that one down below as well. And Kylie Cosmetics is one of the brands I listed in that video where I said, like, I don't even know what she's going to come out with next, but I already know I don't want it. And sure enough, she comes out with these setting powders, and I definitely do not want it. First of all, I don't buy face products online. I kind of talked about that a little bit in my last video because I just feel like it's really hard to find your right shade. Also, for me personally, this is just my personal opinion, but for me, face powders are one of those things where I really don't see much of a difference between like a $40 face powder and a $5 face powder. So I'm really not even sure how much these are, but I'm sure it's something ridiculous. So I don't want these. Another Kylie thing I'm putting on here, I'm also putting this new Kylie lip kit on here, the one that's like the Ulta Beauty exclusive, because I guess she's now going to be selling her brand and her products in Ulta, so this is like their new exclusive shade. And the reason I'm anti-hauling this lip kit in particular is because I have seen so many pictures of it on Instagram, like of the tube itself and swatches and it on lips, and I swear to Beelzebub, every single picture of it I see, it looks like a completely different color. Every time I see it. And I feel like this kind of illustrates what I was saying in my preemptive anti-haul video, where the problem about buying things online is it's just so difficult to tell actually what color it is and if it will actually look good on you. So that's why I really don't like buying makeup online for the most part. Anyway, I'm going to move on to something from another brand that I completely anti-hauled in the last video. There's quite a few of those on here, so I think I was telling the future correctly. But that is the Kat Von D vegan palette. Oh boy. Wow. You know, it is not often that I am rendered completely speechless, but wow. There's really just not a lot left to say about this woman and her shitty products. Really, the only thing at this point that I really do love is the kind of like public response to her every time she comes out with a new product. Really, the way people responded in the first place when she said she wasn't going to vaccinate, and then the way people respond on Trend Mood, like the way people go off in the comments every time she comes out with a new product, and like the way people responded to just that completely asinine video she made a couple weeks back, like just the way people respond repeatedly by just like dragging her to hell and back to hell again, like that really just gives me hope for the future of humanity. And I scroll through the comments. Oh, I just untied my bow. I like scroll through the comments on trend mood, and I see these comments just tearing her to shreds, just tearing her to filth. And for those like 2 to 3 minutes when I'm reading those comments, it just feels like everything's gonna be okay for just those couple minutes, you know. In regards to this palette in particular, the shadows look shitty, the concept is stupid. Then when you factor in the fact that it's a Kat Von D palette, I will just say right here and now that if you go out and purchase this palette, I will think less of you, because I can think of absolutely no rational reason why a person would buy this. Now, what do I have next? Oh yeah, jumping right from one terrible human to another. Next, I have the Jeffree Starr Blue Blood palette. And of course, I wouldn't get it no matter what, because I don't like Jeffree Starr as a person, and I really don't like any of the products of his I've tried anyway, but honest to goodness, I was really disappointed when I first saw inside of this. Well, not so much disappointed, just more like surprised, I guess. What really kind of confuses me about the whole thing is people are going like, oh my god, there's finally like a whole palette of just blue instead of just like the blue pop effect. Like, oh my god, finally it's an all blue palette. First of all, no, it's not. Like, why are there so many damn neutrals in this palette? And why are there so few blues, like true blues, in a palette called a Blue Blood palette? When he first teased a blue palette, like when he first showed the outside packaging without inside of it, I was expecting it to straight up be just like a palette full of blues. And then it looks like only like half of them are actually blue. Like there's like, yeah, like half blue, and then there's a couple of greens, and then the rest of them are just neutrals. I mean, like out of an, what is it, 18? Yeah, 18 pan palette, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, like eight neutral shades. I consider white and black to be neutrals, but it's just, to me, it feels like it's not really complete, you know? It's like we were building an octopus, and then we didn't quite get all 8 arms in there. Like we ended up with a weird hexapus here. And that really does confuse me, because I would have thought that if anyone would come out with a blue palette and really do like a blue palette, I would have thought that would be Jeffree Starr. Like, Jeffree Starr has always been like kind of the go big or go home kind of guy, and I think on this one he should have just gone home. And this one obviously is a miss for me. Objectively, all issues with Jeffree Starr aside, I objectively do not understand why people are losing their damn minds over this palette. Like, it sold out, what, in like 10 minutes, and people were like waiting in line for it at the Morphe stores and stuff. And that's how you know people are legit just buying it for the name, because the palette itself doesn't even look all that exciting. And the other thing that is really like, the other thing that really just like unpacks my groceries is how ever since this collection came out, people are straight up acting like Jeffree Starr invented blue. I mean, it's been like a week, but still, every palette that has come out or been teased since then that has more than 2 blues in it, people are going like, oh my god, they're copying Jeffree Starr. Like, bitch, you didn't invent blue. You don't have royalties on the color blue. And while I'm on this subject, I was at a Superdrug here in London the other day. Let me see if I can find the picture. So I was at a Superdrug here in London, and I took a picture of this palette. It's kind of hard to see, like the lighting was kind of weird because I was in a drugstore, but and obviously I can't speak to the quality of either one of these palettes because I haven't tried either one. I thought about picking this up just to show it in the video and like maybe swatch it, but I decided against it because I'm trying to just be more conscious of the things I buy, and I already have so many of these colors in my collection. But the point is, just look at these two side by side, like these two palettes side by side. They're both like about half blues and then a couple greens and the rest neutral. So the same sort of thing. But the difference is that this one is $5 fucking dollars. Then the Jeffree Starr one is $50. Literally 1/10 of that bulky ass, 1/10 the price of that bulky ass Jeffree Starr palette right there. So just, the point is just consider other options. Consider that this thing that Jeffree Starr came out with maybe isn't the most revolutionary thing that you absolutely need. There are other similar options out there. Next, I have another thing from Jeffree Star, and it's also kind of just like a preemptive anti-haul. He teased on Instagram, I don't know if y'all saw this, but he teased on Instagram that he is coming out with a collaboration with Shane Dawson that nobody asked for. It's a stupid idea, and once again, I will like you less if you buy this. Now getting into a brand I actually like, which is actually a little more difficult because it's so easy to trash a shitty product from a brand that you don't like. But when it comes to a shitty product from a brand you actually like and will actually want to succeed, particularly when it's an indie brand, it actually is really sad. The next thing I'm anti-hauling is the Proof is in the Pudding palette from Bakerie. I love this brand. I love everything I've tried from them. I love their whole aesthetic, their whole shtick, but damn, this palette is boring. I mean, oh God, it's really similar to the Beauty Bay palette I already have. Let me grab that. It's really similar to like this palette. You can see them side by side, this Beauty Bay palette that I already have. And I didn't even buy this. I got this as like a free gift when I did the Beauty Bay masterclass with Linda Hallberg. This was in like our goodie bag. So I wouldn't have even bought the thing that looks like a better version of this. Okay, so that's my point. If I wouldn't have bought that, I'm definitely sure as hell not going to buy this. It makes me sad though, because I really do love this brand. I love their little sponges. Where are they? I have them somewhere. Here they are. The little sponges from Beauty Bay, they come in this little egg carton. How cute is that? And like it's all, you know, biodegradable, and the sponges are great. I really do love them. So I love everything I've tried from this brand, but I really just, man, did they miss the landing pad on this one. Hell, they didn't even land on the ground. They landed in a swimming pool filled with piranhas and cocaine. Just pretend that made sense. Let's move on. So the next thing I have is another one that makes me kind of sad, not because I love this brand. I've actually never tried anything from this brand, so I neither love or hate or feel any way about this brand, but it's the new Zoeva Spring Collection. And the reason I'm kind of sad about this is because I think the packaging on this is just A+. It is gorgeous. It's like, it's interesting, but not too busy. It's cute, but still elegant looking. It very much says spring to me. Like, this packaging is just like, it is all 8 arms of the octopus here. None of the arms are missing here. But then the eyeshadows themselves, just, damn it. Like, I just cannot justify buying this just for the packaging. And I would be buying it just for the packaging because every single color in this palette I have somewhere else in my collection. So there is no reason for me to buy this other than loving the packaging, and I just don't do that anymore. So that's that. Let's move on. The next thing I have is this new Dose of Colors Minnie Mouse collection. So I don't need to tell you that it looks like it has literally nothing to do with Minnie Mouse except for the packaging. You can tell that by looking at it, and as I've said before, that's something that I really don't like. I don't like when a palette or a collection has a very specific theme, and then the actual contents inside of it seem to have absolutely nothing to do with the theme of the packaging. That just kind of annoys me. But what I find particularly annoying about this is that we went through this whole thing a few months back when they came out with the Mickey Mouse collection. I don't have a picture of that one, but it was pretty much the same story. They dropped this Mickey Mouse, or really Mickey Mouse collection, and it was makeup that had Mickey Mouse all over the packaging, and then the products and the colors themselves really didn't seem to have anything to do with Mickey Mouse. And the public response was basically just that. People were saying like, okay, that's cute, but what does it have to do with Mickey Mouse? So then Dose of Colors took all that criticism and apparently told us to go shove it up our asses, because then a few months later they do literally the exact same thing with the Minnie Mouse collection. We have this theme, and then the makeup itself has nothing to do with the theme. And that is definitely something that annoys me a lot, when customers or like the consumers criticize something about a brand or a product, and then the brand is basically just like, you know, I don't like that. Next thing I have is one that also makes me sad because it is an indie brand. And I don't like to anti-haul indie brands for the most part. Like if I were a bigger YouTuber and there were actually a significant amount of people out there who cared about my opinion and made decisions about whether or not to buy things based on what I said, then I would definitely not anti-haul indie brands. But as it is, I just have this very, very, very small fan base that's mostly just like my friends and family, and I really just make these videos for fun and to make them laugh, so I don't think there's really that much harm in including indie brands in my anti-haul. So the next thing I'm anti-hauling is this palette by a brand called Beauty of Color Cosmetics. It's this palette called the Girl Power palette, and the palette itself looks fine. It looks great. The colors themselves look great, if maybe a little redundant in this area. The thing I don't like about this is the same sort of thing I was talking about with the Minnie Mouse thing before. I've said before in other anti-hauls that I really don't like it when it feels like the theme of the palette had nothing to do with the actual products or the actual color choices. It just feels so incohesive. Like it feels like one person came up with the theme and the packaging and the shade names and everything, and then a different person came up with the actual products and the colors and the finishes, and then those two people never met or spoke to each other until it came time to put everything together. That's what it feels like with this. That's how I felt about the Golden Gatsby palette from LA Splash. It's how I felt about the Mickey and Minnie palettes from Dose of Colors, and it's how I feel about this palette as well. The theme of this palette is girl power, and the shades are all like named after prominent feminists and women's rights activists, which is cool. That's cute. I mean, it's a great idea in and of itself, but like I'm all for it as a concept. But once again, I think they just missed the landing when it came to the execution of the idea. Another thing I want to say about this, because this is the thing about this palette that really just kind of like rubs my leg hairs the wrong way. So this one shade in the upper right hand corner over here, that's named Chimamanda, which I'm assuming is named for Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, the famous feminist scholar and author and speaker. I'm assuming they just kind of typed feminist into Google and then named the shades after the first 4 names that popped up. But the other thing about them using the name Chimamanda in particular that really kind of, you know, flips my pancakes is that Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie has very famously spoken out about how she very much does not like when people use her and her words and her message to sell things. Like, most famously, this came up after Beyonce sampled one of Chimamanda's speeches in one of her songs, in that song Flawless. After that, Chimamanda repeatedly expressed displeasure at Beyonce having done that. Basically what she said was that while she very much respects Beyonce as a person and doesn't want to attack Beyonce or tear her down, she really did not care for the fact that Beyonce co-opted her speech and her message and really co-opted her as a person and then kind of used her for Beyonce's own brand. So basically, Chimamanda was not okay. She was not happy with Beyonce using her for her brand. And in that case, I think it's pretty damn audacious of this brand to take her name and throw it on an eyeshadow palette here. I think that's pretty arrogant to say, well, she didn't like being used to sell something when it was Beyonce doing it, but I bet it's okay for us to do it. Like, honestly, who do you even think you are? Like, either that or this brand just isn't even familiar enough with her work or her message to really make that decision, which I think is what's actually more likely here. I really doubt the women behind this brand actually made that like conscious decision and were like, okay, well, she doesn't like it when people use her name to sell things, but we're just going to go ahead and do it anyway. Like, I really don't think anyone ever thought that. I think they genuinely just didn't know because they weren't all that familiar with her and her message beyond just knowing that she is a prominent feminist figure. And honest to goodness, I'm sure the brand is small enough to get away with it. Like, Chimamanda herself is probably never even going to find out about this, and even if she did, she probably wouldn't care enough to do anything about a brand this small. She's got too many other things to do. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Let's move on to the next thing. So back to a bigger brand here. I'm anti-hauling the Sephora Marvel collection, the whole damn thing, but in particular this eyeshadow palette right here. That's one thing I'm definitely anti-hauling. So one of the things I really hate in palettes is when there's a variety in sizes and shapes of the pans. I just think it looks tacky, and usually the worst it ever gets is when you have like square and round pans in the same palette. It usually doesn't look this bad. This honestly looks so cheap to me. This straight up looks like Claire's makeup here. It looks like you should be checking this for asbestos. All right. Plus the other thing about weird pan shapes like this is because I always think about this because I am a project panner. I am a big fan of using a product up in its entirety. So when I look at a pan like this, particularly like one of these guys, all I can think of is when you get down to the pan, what a pain in the ass it will be to try to get your brush into those little corners in there and use up all the product. It just makes me mad just looking at this. Also, Alexis Brianna talked about this collection in her anti-haul, and she specifically talked about the Black Panther highlighter palette or whatever. That's right, you heard me correctly. They did a fucking Black Panther highlighter palette. And she talked in her video about how it was such bullshit because it was literally all colors that would only work on pasty ass white girls like me. And I'll go ahead and just link her video down below because she explained it so much better than I would. The next thing I'm anti-hauling is this ABH Riviera palette. And this has nothing to do with the colors or anything else. I think the palette itself looks gorgeous. I think that it's great for summer. I think this has everything to do with my feelings towards ABH eyeshadows. I own 2 eyeshadow palettes from ABH. I own the Modern Renaissance and the Subculture. Got the Subculture one right here. I can say I've taken out all the ones I finished up. And then I've got the Modern Renaissance right here that I haven't used quite as much. But every time I use one of these, the thing that drives me crazy about these is they just have so much damn kickback and fallout. Every time I use one of these, I feel like I have to wipe down my whole desk and vacuum my room and open a window so I don't suffocate from particle inhalation. If you use one of these palettes every day for a year, you'll probably end up with smoker's lung from all the damn fallout. I have completely used up some of the shades in this palette. I didn't even use them that many times. It's really frustrating. Some of them I feel like I used maybe 5 times and it was just completely used up. And I feel like that's kind of a waste of money. I mean, these palettes aren't even all that expensive for high-end eyeshadow. I didn't actually buy either one of them. My parents bought me this one as a birthday present, and a friend bought me this one, so it's not even my money that's floating off into the air every time I use it, but it's still just as frustrating. They honestly have the worst fallout of any eyeshadow I have ever tried. The only thing that even comes close is the Athena and Aphrodite palettes from Bad Habit. They also have some pretty serious fallout. I think I have my Athena one down here. Yeah, so you can see in my Athena palette, I used up this shade Purity, and I've used quite a bit of this shade Justice, and I haven't used those all that many times either. But the fallout still isn't quite as bad as the ones in the ABH palettes, and these palettes are a fraction of the price. So even though I think that the Riviera palette, I think that it's really pretty, I think it's got a great array of colors for summer, I still don't think I'm going to get it purely just because of my feelings about the formula. I just think it's so difficult and so messy to work with, and I also think it's just kind of a waste of money. The next thing I'm anti-hauling is something from MAC, which is a little different for me just because for me, MAC is something that usually just isn't even on my radar. I feel like for a while, none of their releases have been all that exciting. I feel like most of the recent MAC releases have not inspired strong feelings in me one way or another, just kind of there. But then they came out with the spring collection, and once again, I think the packaging here is just 10 out of 10 tacos. Such great packaging for spring. And also, I am not anti-hauling this entire collection. This blush, Where did I have a picture of the blush? Nope, I only have a picture of this. But the blush that's in it really appeals to it. I will probably get that blush. I think it's gorgeous. The thing I'm anti-hauling specifically is the eyeshadow palette. Like, are y'all serious with this? Let's just zoom in on that. Are y'all serious? And while I'm at it, I'm just gonna go into the next thing on my list, which is the Natasha Denona like Au Natural palette or whatever, because the point I'm making is the same for both of these palettes, which is who at this point is still asking for a high-end eyeshadow palette that is just neutrals? Who does not already have all the neutrals they could ever want or need? Like, if everything with the Urban Decay Naked palettes has proven anything, it's that we as a society of people have moved past all neutral palettes. There was a point when everybody wanted these high-end eyeshadow palettes full of like gorgeous neutral shades, and then the moment passed, and you can see that through the kind of declining interest in the Naked palettes from Urban Decay. Like, for a while everyone was so excited about them, and then over time people just kind of got over it and moved on to the next thing. And I don't understand why these brands still think it's a good idea to come out with a neutral palette. No one is asking for that anymore. No one wants an all neutral palette anymore. All right, let me hydrate a bit. Oh, this is going on long. I am so ranty. We're almost in the end, I promise. The next thing I have is the Farsali Gold Skin Mist. Farsali is that brand that just keeps pumping out overpriced, bougie shit that nobody asked for. And they've done it again, because now they've come out with a skin mist that has actual flakes of gold in it. Why? This literally serves no purpose other than just being bougie as all hell. Like, it's just like those gold face masks and gold facials where they use flakes of real gold on your skin. It's just so damn unnecessary. And yes, let me just say that yes, it's true that pure gold has antioxidant properties and purification properties, and I am well aware of that. But you know what else has a lot of those same properties? A ton of other elements on the periodic table. Like, just for example, carbon, which is why activated charcoal is so big right now in skin products. In fact, in regards to what's actually going to benefit your skin, activated charcoal is going to be a lot better than gold, and it's also astronomically cheaper than gold, and you won't look like nearly as much of a tool for using it in your beauty routine. If you use anything that contains pure gold anywhere in your beauty or skincare routine, then I genuinely hope you get trapped in an escape room listening to a never-ending Amy Schumer comedy special for the rest of your life, because that is literally the worst possible fate I can imagine for a person. Okay, next thing, I have another MAC product, but this isn't really anything against MAC. Like, in all seriousness, I do think it's important to acknowledge MAC as one of the kind of forerunners of social responsibility for a makeup brand. Like, they were doing, like, MAC was doing campaigns for HIV/AIDS back when that was still very controversial, like decades ago. And I mean, it is still controversial in a lot of ways, but I think it's important that MAC as a brand kind of set that precedent, and still to the day, they are still one of the few major brands that shows that kind of social responsibility. So the next thing I'm anti-hauling, which is these MacxChristen Dominique lipsticks, really isn't even about MAC. It's more about Kristen Dominique. I mean, doesn't she have her own brand? Like, I'm really just over seeing collabs between a brand and a beauty guru or an influencer who has their own brand. First of all, I just don't really get it. I think it's kind of dumb, but also I can't help but feel like it's kind of taking opportunities away from a beauty guru who does not have their own brand, maybe a smaller guru who could really use the experience. Man, it sounds weird when you say guru a lot of times in a row, but I'm just, someone else could possibly use this exposure, and I'm just tired of seeing this. And then, funnily enough, one of the last things I have, I did add one thing after this, but the next to last thing I have is a beauty guru with her own brand. It's the new Nikita Dragun Beauty crap. I think this all looks dumb and unnecessary and overpriced, but what I really want to talk about, that's the last thing I have so I can set that down, but what I really want to talk about is this skin product she has in there. She has this color corrector that's supposed to be a universal color corrector that will work on any skin tone. And boy, am I ever tired of that gimmick. There are just not enough words in any of the 3 languages I speak to fully express just how tired I am of brands busting out a skin product that they claim is universal or will work on any skin tone, because first of all, that's just bullshit. It never actually works on everyone. It never is actually universal. But what really cracks my eggs is, like, what really just, overdraws my eyebrows is when brands act like it's some sort of a fan service to do that. Where they act like they're being all woke by coming out with one single shade of a product and claiming it's universal, but when in reality it's just lazy as all hell. Like, really, you're just avoiding putting the time and money into coming out with an actual shade range. You really just do have a color in there that works for everyone when you have an actual shade range. Instead, you just do the laziest move you could possibly do by coming out with one single color and being like, here you go, fuck you. Like, basically, it's just so stupid too, because there just is not a skin product that's going to work for everyone. Everyone has different skin. Everyone has different shade, different undertones, and that is awesome. That is something that should be celebrated. The makeup industry and everyone in it should be celebrating just how much diversity there is in skin tone. Which is why I think brands like Fenty and them are so great with all their shade ranges, because I think it's such a wonderful celebration of how we all have different skin and that's beautiful and we're all beautiful, versus something like this with this Nikita Dragun bullshit, with the whole thing coming out with one product and claiming that it's universal and that it will work for everyone. That to me is just 20,000 steps in the wrong direction, because it's trying to put people into a box instead of encouraging people to embrace what makes them different and even, dare I say, like, celebrate what makes them different, and which is what I think makeup should really should be about. So basically, in summary, my main thesis statement is that I really think we need to put this whole idea of a universally flattering shade, I think we need to put that to bed. We need to put it to sleep. And I do say for skin product, because I do think there are eye products and lip products that can be universal and look good on everyone, or at least look on a wider range of people, or even things like blush or highlighter. I think it's possible for there to be a color that will work on kind of a wide range of skin tones. Maybe not all of them, because like I said, everyone has different undertones, but I do think it's possible for like a blush or a highlighter shade to be very versatile across skin tones, because there can sometimes be something where if you have lighter skin, you can just use kind of a lighter hand with it, but if you have deeper skin, you can build it up a bit more. So I think that can work, but stuff like foundation, concealer, color corrector, bronzer, contour, just quit being a buzzard and actually come out with a shade range. Don't just come out with one shade and be like, this will work for everyone. No, it won't. And you know that, you lazy hoe. And then the final thing I have is something I just kind of threw on there last night. I don't even have a picture of it or anything, but it was just like, I was watching the Smoky Glow video where she was talking about this last night, and so I wanted to kind of throw my 2 cents in. So the Whale Song palette from Menagerie Cosmetics. If you're not familiar with all the recent drama surrounding this brand and this palette, I'll link the video down below where Smoky Glow was talking about it, because I think she summed it up very well and gave some very thoughtful opinions on it. But just to summarize, if you're not familiar with it, basically Menagerie Cosmetics is an indie makeup brand, which I guess has been kind of struggling financially, and they're not doing so well. So like, I guess they're just not selling so many palettes, which does kind of surprise me, because I've seen some pretty prominent YouTubers use their stuff on their channels and hype them up. So I would have thought that kind of press would go a bit of a ways, but I don't know. But anyways, the point is, I guess things weren't going very well at the Menagerie Cosmetics HQ, and the owner of the brand kind of made this crazy unhinged Instagram rant where she basically just lamented about how the business wasn't doing well and the palettes weren't selling very well or not as well as she would have hoped. You know, the kind of information that would literally never be appropriate to put on a public Instagram post to all of your consumers, you know, that kind of thing. And as if she wasn't digging her own grave enough, she basically blamed all of her fans for the fact that the palettes weren't selling well. Like she basically said something like to the tune of like, you guys talk so much about how you love the palettes and we get so many likes and everything, but I guess you don't like it enough to actually buy it. Like, whoa, right? Like, and I guess she took it down pretty quickly because she got a lot of backlash, obviously, but people did screenshot it, so you can still read it in its entirety. Smoky Glow does have a screenshot of it in her video if you want to see it and read it for yourself. So that whole thing really just kind of turned me off from the brand in general. I will not be purchasing the new Whale Song palette or anything else from the brand, which is sad because I actually did want their Feral palette and I was actually planning on buying it when my no-buy ends, but I will not be doing that anymore. And one of the things Smoky Glow was talking about in her video where she was talking about this was how she thinks a lot of these indie brands really need to take like a basic business class or a basic marketing class, so just so they can learn how to better represent themselves on social media, and also so that we as consumers can go a full week without having to hear about one of their fuck-ups. That would be kind of nice. But I'd also like to add to that that I think a big problem with a lot of indie makeup brands is that they all kind of have the same shtick, you know, they all kind of have the same like MO and like the exact same selling point. And that selling point that they all seem to have is basically just like, we are an indie makeup brand and we are not a mainstream makeup brand. Buy our shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they all kind of use the exact same selling points. Like, oh, we're a small independent brand. We're not one of those big corporate monsters, so you should support us. Also, a lot of time they use that whole shtick of like, we're vegan, we're cruelty-free, but don't even get me started on the fucking scam of cruelty-free. But the point is that these indie makeup brands, what they don't seem to realize is that they can't just put all their effort into differentiating themselves from the mainstream makeup brands. They also need to put some effort into setting themselves apart from the other indie brands, because there are just so many damn indie brands out there today. Like, things like Instagram and Etsy have allowed there to be so many more small independent makeup brands than there used to be, which is great because it allows people the opportunity to have their own makeup brand when previously maybe that wouldn't have been an option for them. But the problem with that is a lot of these indie brands just seem to be completely oblivious to the fact that they're not just competing with the big mainstream corporate brands, they also need to figure out how to compete with the other indie brands. Like, if you follow makeup tags on Instagram, you'll probably see, within like 5 minutes of scrolling, you'll probably see 10 to 15 different indie makeup brands just scrolling through there. So what you need to do as a brand is prove to me why I should buy from you rather than from one of those other indie brands. Like, not just why I should buy from you rather than a mainstream brand. And I really think that's what these brands just aren't quite grasping. And I think Smoky Glow is right. I think part of it is that the people running these brands don't have a lot of knowledge or experience in business or in marketing or in advertising, so they just don't know these things. And I think that's where a lot of them are falling flat. Lucia Tupper kind of talked about this a little bit in one video as well. I can't remember what video it was, but I'll link her channel down below. You should check her out. She's awesome. But she was saying that with some brands, the problem they seem to have is that they can't seem to differentiate their brand from themselves. And you can see that sometimes in some of these brands where you can tell that the owner of the brand is the one who is actually running the Instagram. And I think that's never a good idea. I think you should hire someone to do that. But I think kind of what Lucia Tupper was saying is that the problem with when you as a person and your brand are one and the same is that anytime you as a person fuck up, then that's going to cause your brand to suffer. And that's the kind of thing you've seen with like Kat Von D as well, is because there's no separation between her and her brand. I mean, every single brand has a person behind it. There is a face behind it somewhere, but a lot of times they keep that face a little more hidden because they know that they don't want everything that they do that someone might object to. They don't want that to then reflect on their brand, and then people will be like, oh, I don't like that you did that, so I'm not going to buy your brand. But yeah, that's probably a whole nother rant. But anyway, that's the last thing I have because I basically just added it in like last night before bed. So this is actually the first video I've posted in a while. You probably noticed I've actually been having some issues lately, some depression and some anxiety and some sleep issues too, but I'm studying to retake the MCAT right now, and I'm also working on reapplying to medical school for after I finish my master's degree. So I've just got a lot going on, but I'm hoping to get another ASMR video up tonight. If not tonight, then tomorrow. All right, this has gone on long enough. All right, see ya.